Hi, it's Naomi back again. And so this week I'm gonna make a video about the exciting thing, which is Uranus finally moving into the sign of Gemini after spending 7 years in the sign of Taurus. Now, if you know anything about astrology, you know that this is gonna be a lot more exciting and a lot more flowing 7 years than the previous 7 years. And before we talking about what's gonna happen, because first of all, this video is going to be all about, the global themes, what might going to happen collectively in the next 7 years. But before I talk about that, I just want to sum up a little bit what happened in the previous 7 years, the one we just finishing up now, which is again Uranus in the sign of Taurus, because every time slower moving planet moves into a new sign, the global themes, the global collective story changes. And so we had a different story up to this point, up to pretty much the 26th of April. And so what was the story with Uranus and Taurus? Well, Uranus in Taurus brought three major changes or disruption to three major areas. And one was the financial and banking system. So you probably realize that was the time when we had, cryptocurrency and all these digital currencies coming up. Now, of course, digital currency was already kind of a thing before 2018, but it was 2018, just at the same time when Uranus moved into Taurus, that this whole thing, crypto and all the digital currencies came to the forefront. And that was partially exciting and partially confusing and, very unpredictable. Lots of people, had a huge gain with crypto. But a huge part of the population had lost money through crypto because, again, this is what Uranus brings. It's partially exciting, but partially disruptive energy. So this is something we definitely saw. The banking system changed. We still have cryptocurrency, and pretty much the banking and the, how we deal with money has fundamentally changed because, again, we still have crypto and, all these digital currencies just going to be stronger. But this is something that started when Uranus moved into Taurus. And why is that? It's because Taurus is ruled by Venus, the planet Venus, and Venus is the one that represents money and currency. So again, there was very, very typical astrology when we're talking about the changing of the banking system and the money system and the currency and the money flow. Again, that happened since 2018. All the way up to now. Again, it's not going to go away, but the story or the topic won't be as chaotic or as, up at the forefront than it was in the last previous 7 years. Now, the other thing we noticed with it was how we deal with material things, how we, what was important, what we prioritize. And again, this is because Uranus was in the sign of Taurus, which is again ruled by planet Venus, which is rules money. And so people started to kind of realize that, material things maybe not as important than experiences. So we saw the big rise of people, selling out things and starting to this so-called alternative lifestyle, starting into van life, going into traveling, the mobile homes, people living out in the car. And again, this is still happening, and I think it's still going to be a big part of our collective story. Also because we have Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, which is a larger cycle, astrological cycle, but also relates to this story. Just give me 1 second, because my cat is making some noises here. 1 sec. That's how it is when you live with 3 cats and trying to make a video. Anyway, so yeah, people started to, travel and work and live at the same place. Again, this van life and, the tiny house movement become really big because, again, people realize that accumulating wealth is maybe not what they want to do. It doesn't mean they're going to be completely nomad, but instead of accumulating wealth, they started to using their money and started to value different things. And again, this is because Uranus is something that is innovative, that is very future thinking, that is an energy. This is an energy that can bring like shocking changes into your life. And so in Uranus in Taurus, that was another way it manifested. So again, traveling, and also this just the rise of minimalism. So if you go on YouTube or any social media, you can find tons of video, like literally hundreds of thousands of videos on minimalism, which before 2018 wasn't as popular. So that's the other thing. And the third very noticeable thing was, the change in agriculture. Sustainable farming came to the forefront. People started to realize, the way we using water, what we do with the earth, how we managing or mismanaging the earth. And again, this was the time when people started pretty much changing their eating habits. That's when veganism or plant-based living became quite popular. And again, it doesn't mean everyone on the planet went vegan or plant-based, but that was the time when people really started to connect, what they eat and the connection of the the state of the planet. And so lots of people again started choosing greener options, maybe going just vegetarian, maybe going fully vegan, plant-based, or just using, again, sustainable living. And so again, there were so many other things. We could just make just a video, just a whole video about, Uranus in Taurus. And this video is not about that, but I just really wanted to give you a kind of idea that how a certain planet in a certain sign bring into certain topics for about 7 years, because Uranus stays in a sign for about 6.5 to 7 years. So if we have to sum up the last 7 years, what Uranus did, it really changed our relationship with all the tangible things, all the assets we have, all the things we can touch and taste and see and smell. And that is because Uranus was in the sign of Taurus, and Taurus represents all of that, the tangible things. And so our relationship with it has changed. Again, it's not going to go away, but now we have a different storyline. So what is the different storyline? Well, the different storyline is that now Uranus moves into the sign of Gemini. It's going to move in on the 26th of April, so it's really just 4 days from now, and it's going to stay there for till 2033, so approximately 7 years. Now, one thing I want to point out, and I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but this is something I must mention because I want to give you a full picture. And even though it's going to be an exciting time in so many ways, but if we look back historically, Uranus in Gemini, war always came up. The last 3 times when we had Uranus in the sign of Gemini, we had major wars. So the last time we had, the last period was from 1941 to 1949. That's when Uranus was in Gemini, the last previous time. And that was when we had the Second World War. The Second World War was already happening. And so we saw the the war becoming, getting even more prominent. And then we also saw the end of the Second World War. But then previously, 84 years prior, between 858 to 866, we had the US Civil War. And if we go back another 84 years, then we had the US Revolutionary War. So the interesting thing with this actually is that neither Uranus and nor Gemini relate to war. So how come that we do have wars around this time? And that has everything to do with the topics and the themes, because Uranus rules things like wanting to break free, wanting to break through. It's about freedom. It's about independence. It's about innovation. It's about being a rebel. These are all the things Uranus represents. And Gemini, amongst many other things, represents neighbors, neighborhood, sisterhood, brotherhood, but not just your sisters and brothers, like in your family, but in your neighborhood, so neighboring countries. And so the neighboring countries wanting to have freedom and wanting to, bring change, unfortunately, quite often that happens through war. This is just, unfortunately, the way often happens. So again, this is something, it's important to remember, not to scare you, not to really dwell on it too much, because if it happens, it happens. You probably can't do anything too much individually, but just keep it in the back of your mind. And also because this is, again, feeds into a larger story. We have a larger story, which is, again, Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, which is, again, talking about something similar. So, yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. But that's the only kind of negative things, like scary things, I wanted to mention. The rest of them is nowhere near as bad. It's a lot more exciting. All right. So first of all, I just want to say it is always a big thing when an outer planet moves into a new sign. And that is because it's very rare. And these outer planets also called the collective planets. So we have 3 outer or collective planets: Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And so whenever they change sign, like I mentioned before, the collective story changes. And it's also important because this is really once in a lifetime transit for most of us. Pretty much all of us who are watching this video, it's a once in a lifetime transit, because it's gonna take another 84 years for Uranus to come back to the same sign. And I don't know about you, but I certainly won't be here in 84 years time. So again, this is something we only experiencing one. Now, for example, if you live up to 84 years or, being older, then you can, you can live through a Uranus return, meaning Uranus coming back to the same point in your chart. But again, that's, the time when you're pretty much quite mature. And yeah, if you really want to do something with this time, change something in your life and use this energy for your own benefit, then this is your only chance. All right. So like I said, Uranus representing a few things. I mean, many things. I already mentioned a few, and then I'm just going to mention a few more because I've got a whole list. But really, Uranus, what it does, first of all, we call it the Great Awakener or the Great Disruptor. And Uranus brings progress by breaking down anything that is outdated, that is, that is just there for comfort, but doesn't have any meaning anymore. So Uranus really comes into your life or into society's life and breaks things down. Now, Uranus also represents, like I mentioned, innovation, revolution, disruption, liberation. It is, everything that is shocking, that is radical, that is surprising, that is unpredictable. All these things, all these events are represented by Uranus. Now, Uranus also represents things like technology, the internet, any scientific breakthrough, aviation, anything in the sky that flies, anything is that kind of, quote unquote, above us, that is again represented by Uranus. That's why Uranus also called the sky god. There is a whole mythological story behind it. But yeah, Uranus was also called the sky god. And things like aircrafts, airspace, again, anything to do with flying, it is represented by Uranus. Also things like big weather patterns, like weather changes, like storms, lightning in the sky. Again, that is all represented by Uranus. Now, again, there are quite a few other things I could mention, but you probably get the understanding that Uranus is something that brings excitement to your life, but it's usually equally exciting and equally disturbing, or can be a little bit even scary, because again, this is a very unpredictable energy. Give me a moment because I need to drink. By the way, this is not a beer. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, it's hard to see. This is a peach sparkling water. All right, so yeah, Uranus represents anything that is exciting. Uranus also represents things like the nervous system. Now, Uranus also the higher octave of Mercury. Mercury represents the mind, and Uranus also represents the mind, but this is the higher octave. So it's like the genius mind. If you have strong Uranus in your chart, in your birth chart, you could have, really high IQ and just have this really, different way of thinking, but having a genius mind. All right, so 1 second. Charlie. Again, cats. All right, so as I said, there were like different topics when we were talking about Uranus in Taurus. And now I'm going to talk about Uranus in Gemini, because again, there will be lots of different changes for sure, lots of changes that, we can't even predict. And one of the reasons we can't predict it, because Uranus represents unpredictability and shocking changes, things that you just didn't expect. So again, even astrologers, when it comes to Uranus, sometimes we just scratch our head because we just didn't see the particular things coming. But we know what Uranus represents. We know what Gemini represents. So again, we can have a good understanding of the larger topics, what may come into these 7 years. Okay, now the first one I would mention is the technological revolution, and that is very obvious because, like I said, Uranus rules the internet, anything to do with technology, and Gemini rules anything to do with communication. Okay, so when you put the 2 and 2 together, it's very easy to see, and we already see, the rapid rising of AI. And is it good? Is it bad? Is it scary? Is it exciting? Well, I think when you think about it, it's all of them. All of them. And again, this is Uranus in action, even though it's still not technically in Gemini, just in a few days' time. But Uranus already was in Gemini for a short period of time, and then it retrograded back to Taurus, where it is now. But what I'm trying to say that we already had this energy, and it's already here with us. It's not just going to start right on that day. Energy is just flowing, and they gradually become stronger and stronger. And so again, this technical revolution is definitely coming. Artificial intelligence is going to be just more prominent. It's going to be a huge part of our life. It's very soon become the new norm, and I think most of us already aware of it. There will be for sure new social platforms. Some astrologers say that probably YouTube itself will be gone, and there will be brand new different platforms. We will see if YouTube will be here or not, but either way, there are gonna be new social platforms. There are gonna be lots of independent media outlets, new independent media outlets. Of course, there will be like AI driven media outlets. So again, it's just how this technological revolution gonna revolutionize our life. It's very exciting, but it's also a bit scary because so many of us scared of AI, what it can do. Is it gonna take over our life completely? Is it gonna help us? Is it gonna be against us? Again, this is something we will have to wait and see. But again, this is how Uranus works. It's exciting and it's disrupting all at once. Certainly there will be, increased effort to regulate how AI is being used, how, for example, our personal information being used or misused. And again, this is something we already been seeing. The other thing is that, this deep fake, we will have to be very mindful and, really putting our thinking hats on to figure out what we see. Is it real or is it not real? And not just what we see, but also what we hear, because there will be so many social media outlets and some of them will be completely rubbish, but they're going to be so convincing, again, thanks to AI and, the rapidly changing technology, that it will be very hard to distinguish between what is real and what is not real. So this is one of the major themes of the next 7 years. Now, the other thing is the educational system. And again, this is because both Uranus and Gemini rules the mind, and Uranus is the higher mind. Gemini is more about, the ruler planet of Gemini is Mercury, which is again the mind, how we think. But Gemini also rules schools. So the actual schools and school systems. So again, there will be innovations, and again, this is something we really seen since 2020. Since the lockdown, that lots of kids or parents started to homeschool the kids, and lots of kids stop going to school even after COVID because the parents continue with homeschooling. So that's just gonna change. But it's also more about what we're gonna study and how we're gonna study. Like who are going to be our teachers? I think again, this is real human connection, unfortunately, probably is on the decrease, and it's going to be replaced by AI. You're probably going to learn from an AI teacher, or you will have like an AI tutor on an online platform. But again, it might sound very robotic and very detached, and in many ways it is. But again, there will be positive side to this. Maybe it will be more available for so many people to study, regardless of where you are. If you live remotely, or if you live in a village, or if you just don't have public transportation, you still can study and learn, because thanks to the technology. Now, other things I think gonna change quite a bit is about what we study. I really believe that, the old way of, studying for many, many years to get your PhD, or for, your university degree, that is gonna change. it's not going to go away. But again, it's because Gemini has everything to do with the hands and hands-on things. So I think there will be more people studying things like more hands-on skills, practical things, things that don't take years to achieve. Things maybe, a course that is maybe 6 months long or a year long or maximum 2 years long, and you can really put what you learn into practice straight away. So maybe people, and I can actually see that the young people started to do, for example, in Italy. I saw this video. Young people back in Italy, they started learning farming again because their parents were farmers, and they took over the farms, but they're gonna do it in their own innovative way. They do like we mentioned before, this ecosystem and using the earth in a better way, using the earth and not just take what we need and abandon the land, but really working with the land. And I think this is something, again, you're gonna use your hands, but you're gonna use your mind, your knowledge, which is again Uranus, the higher mind, the genius mind, and you're gonna put it into practice, bring it into practice. So hands-on study. Let me just see what else I have here. Now, the other thing which I find exciting, and again, it's still part of what we study and how we study, how we learn, is learning languages. I think that's also gonna change because, again, language is a huge part of our communication, and Uranus just brings innovation to this area. So I think there will be different apps, different learning platform to learn languages, and I don't know how it's going to happen. I was thinking about it, but I was thinking like maybe learning languages through hypnosis or like a deep state, going into a deep state. I don't know how, I don't even know how to explain it completely, but I think we're gonna use our knowledge and our what we learn, but again, use it in a different way. So we're not going to learn languages from the books or in a school system, but learning in a very new, innovative way, again, which probably I don't even know how it's going to happen, but I have this feeling that it's something to do with with your brain waves and bringing together this deeper state, again, meditation or meditative state, and being able to learn languages faster, and probably not even just the languages. We can use the same method to to learning whatever skill. So I think we will find out the way to have new skills, to new knowledge, but in a shorter period of time. I hope that makes sense. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, and I try to make this video quite fast because I have to go to work, and sometimes I feel like I don't make any sense, but I hope if you are still here, thank you. All right, so let me just see my notes. Yeah, and I think because Gemini rules, the glyph over the Gemini is the twins. So it's not one, but it's two. And so this is about the next 7 years about, diversifying. So not just learning one thing, but you learn more things. You not just become known for one single thing. You will have just one title, but you will have more things. Gemini is known for the jack of all trades, the master of none. And that means, you learn what you need, you don't learn more. And then if you're interested in something else, or if you need another skill, you will just learn it. So again, a big change in how we learn the information, how we use our information, what we do with it, and how we gain information and knowledge at the first place. Now, the other thing is going to be huge, and that is the travel industry, how we travel. and especially when it comes to traveling by air. So when it comes to aeroplanes and flying from one place to the next. So I think there will be a big rise in space travel. Again, this is something we see. We already been seeing it, but again, at this point, you have to be a millionaire or a billionaire to go to do a bit of a space travel. I think it's going to be more accessible, probably not in the next 7 years. You and I, we probably still won't go to space the next 7 years, but I think it's going to become a lot more accessible, and again, a lot more, soon it will become the new norm. Now, the other thing, and you might just gonna raise your eyebrow, is the flying cars. And you might be like, what, flying cars? Yes, because I don't know if you know, but in the UK, it's actually already exists. There is not exist in, it's not available for public, but they actually built an airport, and I wrote it down somewhere. It's called Air One. It's in the Coventry in the UK. You can actually Google it. It's called Air One, and that is an airport which is designed entirely to testing flying cars. They also say this is at the moment is the test site for drone logistics. But for the future, this is actually where they're going to test the flying cars. And again, if you already have an entire, airport built for it, then you know that this is something, definitely happening and definitely coming. Another thing I already mentioned is the drone. Drones are getting, unfortunately, right now we use a lot of drones, related to wars, but I think the how we use drones and what we use it for, it's again gonna be lots of innovation in this sector. And again, drones in general will be a lot more accessible to people. Even now, if you try to buy a drone for YouTube, YouTubers use it for videos. It's still not a cheap thing to buy, but I think it's going to be cheaper and going to be, again, more accessible. And also we're going to find ways to use it. So that's, again, something. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention when it comes to, changing how we travel is the driverless cars. And again, you may or may not know that, in the US, in certain cities, they already have driverless cars, and they use it as robotaxis. And they use it like a driverless AI, like your Uber driver. I actually watched a video a couple of months ago, and one of my favorite YouTubers, they were just going from the Airbnb to the airport. So they were going to the airport, and they had a car turn up, and there was a driverless car, and that was very futuristic, I must say. But this is, again, Uranus represents future thinking. The future is ruled by Uranus, and again, this is when the future comes to you into the present moment. So yeah, that car turned up and took them to the airport, and they were happy, and the car just left. And again, this is only in a few cities in the UK. I checked, it is not available. It's still not available in Australia and most parts of the world, but this is something that's going to be rolled out within this next 7 years for sure. And again, that's just going to become more and more, part of our everyday life. Now, what else? Yes, the other thing I wanted to mention is, and of course, when it comes to, how we travel, I think one more thing is, I think it's going to be more traveling within the country. So for example, if you live in the US or, in larger countries like Canada or just countries that are larger, the travel will be more interstate rather than international. And again, this is because Gemini rules communities and your immediate environment rather than places like really, really far away. Now, does it mean we're going to stop traveling completely? Hopefully not. Hopefully nothing will happen, nothing major to stop us, traveling to the other side of the world. But Gemini represents, again, the local communities. And this is the topic I want to mention now, is the new form of communities. And I think this is something we're going to see. 1 second. Sorry. And that is, we will see new communities popping up, local communities, which gonna be based on shared interest. So whether you have this, the shared knowledge or shared interest, or whether you are at the same age and there is some, connection or mutual benefit in the group. But regardless, there are going to be these grassroots movements coming up, but just communities, local communities in general, that's again going to focus on shared interest, and they're going to help each other or in one way or the other. Again, I don't know if I make any sense here with this. I'm trying to say quickly before going to work. But yeah, so again, people are going to come together. When I mentioned this van life, for example, if you live in a van, you might gonna go into, where people living in a community, like van community, like where all the vans people they park their vans and live together. Or if you have like an eco culture and you're growing your own food, or you're farming and again you have this eco garden, then you might gonna have this shared garden community, and then you're gonna live and again share what you have with another person or with another family within your community. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And also because Gemini rules anything to do with trades. So again, buying and selling and, what you have, even again, what you exchange with the other person. So again, that's why I was thinking that, we have these new currencies coming up, which I already said that it's not going to go away. But I think there will be people who might gonna go against the new currency, and instead they're just gonna step away completely. So instead of being part of the digital currency, they might just gonna be, okay, I'm not gonna be part of this, and we're just gonna do something, this barter system, which is again very, very Gemini, and again very Uranus, because it's again you being innovative and using what you have and being smart about it, and so you exchange what you have with another person. So again, you trading your goods with someone else's goods, or you may be trading your knowledge, your skills, and you get something else instead of money. Someone else paying with, I don't know, a bunch of a bag of potatoes or a packet of pasta or whatnot. So I think this is something we're definitely going to see. And again, I keep coming back to this point. It's not just because we have Uranus in Gemini, but we also have Pluto in Aquarius, which is again talking about the deep transformation of humanity, how we are, how we operate. So this is something we're going to see. And just one more thing, two more things. One is it's going to be most likely the disruption and the decentralization, or in worst case, the complete falling apart to certain nations and institutions. So large institution which represents nations and people, different communities, things like the NATO, the WHO, the UNICEF, or the United Nations. These are, again, these big communities that is representing, large number of people. And I think there will be, again, disruption with them. Maybe they're just going to go through a complete overhaul, or again, they might just going to fall apart. So again, yeah, because that is a lot to do with community, people, how people interact with each other. And again, Uranus comes in and gonna change things and again break it down, or just change it and move it to a completely new direction, like reshape all these communities and even certain nations, certain countries. Now, the last thing I want to mention is the UFO sites. And again, maybe, again, you just, raising your eyebrows and like, Noemi is going a little bit woo-woo. But the thing is, it is actually a fact. I didn't do my own research, but I watched a video by the Weekly Astrology Report by Dane Wayne. If you don't know Dane Wayne and the Weekly Astrology Report, check him out. He's one of the best mundane astrologer. All he does is mundane astrology, which is, talking about world events and current affairs from an astrological perspective. And so he had a video. If I find the link, I will put it into the description. But even if not, just Google it, Google him. And so he researched, and apparently every time we have Uranus in Gemini, the UFO sites of people seeing, flying objects or, things related to extraterrestrials, the numbers increase quite a bit. And again, from an astrological perspective, it makes complete sense because Uranus rules the sky and everything is beyond, everything is beyond what we see. And Gemini, which is communication, and also its ruling planet Mercury, it's about communication. So we are communicating with something that beyond our knowledge. And so in fact, it was in 1947 when we had the Roosevelt incident, which you probably know, then when there was what it seemed to be a UFO aircraft that crashed in the US. And this is, a huge topic since then. And that's when really, this whole new UFO era started back in 1947, which was, again, the last time Uranus was in the sign of Gemini. So what I'm trying to say with all this, that we most likely going to see an increase, sites related to UFOs and extraterrestrials, more of UFO-related phenomena in general. And some astrologers do talk about it. And again, we will have to wait and see whether it's going to happen or not. But some people think that this is the year, or not the year, but this 7-year period is the time when we most likely going to meet E.T. Hello, E.T. So yeah, again, we have to wait and see. And the interesting things, just to point out that the movie, the Full Disclosure by Steven Spielberg is just coming out. I think it's on the 2nd of June this year. And that movie is based on the 1947, Roswell disclosure. And if you haven't seen what's it called, the trailer for the video, for the movie, watch it. It's super exciting. Even if you're not into UFOs, it's quite exciting. And what they're trying to say. So watch it. I think it's going to be awesome. But again, it's just interesting from the astrological point that the movie is coming out right now when Uranus is in the sign of Gemini, which is again always related, looking back historically, related to UFO sites and UFO phenomena. So I could speak a lot more, but I have to go to work, so I can't. Now, if I just gonna really, like in a minute or two, just summarize. So I really think that the next 7 years is gonna be super exciting. Again, Uranus in Gemini is very comfortable. It's because Gemini is an air sign and Uranus is a ruling planet of Aquarius, which is again, it's an air sign. So the energies are blending very nicely. They're supporting each other. So the changes that are coming, they're going to be very rapid because we're talking about air. You know, air just flows. It's very, it just moves without restriction. So it's going to be very exciting. It's good to be alive at this time and see what's happening in the world. It's going to be so many new innovations, things again, which we can't even fathom. But at the same time, it's just going to be this information overload for sure, because again, Uranus talks about the higher mind, Gemini talks about the mind, Gemini is about communication, Uranus is about the higher mind and connection through the mind and the nervous system. So it's just gonna be a huge information overload for the human psyche, and I think it's very important that somehow you try to center yourself, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through just easiest way, just switching off your phone and social media for half an hour a day, whether it's through going into nature, just going into outdoors and just walk around a little bit, whatever works for you. Doesn't matter. We all have our things what we like to do to come and recenter ourselves, but I think it's gonna be extremely important, because otherwise you can just go with the fairies. Like, I really think that lots of people in these 7 years, they're gonna lose the marbles completely, because there will be just too many things to look, to listen, to check out. And if you don't again, if you don't center yourself, you're gonna be gone. So anyway, I'm gonna make videos more about this topic as well. Again, not to scare you, but really try to center yourself, and using your critical thinking again is very important, because there will be information overload coming from left and right 24/7. And thanks to AI, you might watching videos for hours and hours and has nothing to do with reality, and you don't even know about it. So again, good time to be alive, exciting time, but like I said, in a very Uranian fashion, it's partially exciting and unpredictable, but partially can be scary and confusing. So on that note, I'm gonna finish this video. And please, if you like it, if you find any useful information, find it useful, please share it with your friends and family. And please just give a like, a thumbs up. And if you would like to see more videos, please hit the follow button. So if you can just follow the channel, and so you're gonna be part of this channel and see where we go with it. Okay, so thank you so much, guys. Sorry it was a little bit long, but I still think I didn't put everything into the video I wanted to, but I think it gives you a good idea what comes starting very soon. We're pretty much in the energy, in this energy, but officially starting on the 25th or 26th, depending where you live in the world, of April. So that's all for now. See you guys soon.